Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today on our last stop on the Festival of Fiends. Yes, it is already over. That is kind of what happens when you only have 4 weekends in the month of October, I guess. Either way, this week we dive back into the depths of hell, looking at one more fiend which only appears sparingly in the West, Asuras. Long ago, as the gods were building the universe, they tested again and again the reality they wanted to create. They destroyed planets and lives without a care, because they were able to build new ones with ease. But those that were trampled never forgot. Until the day of the big mistake, the event where the gods clearly and truly messed up. An event that would give rise to the creatures designed to never allow them to forget their sins. The first Asura. And soon pets who were tossed aside and punishments for excess gave rise to a nether, and a nether, and a nether. Originally these creatures could only hide within the maelstrom, but as their numbers grew, they eventually moved to hell to live among the Titans and Vostok. However, one day the devils descended and one of the Azura's own, Greon, betrayed them, allowing Asmodeus to win the war. Asura are still allowed to live in hell, however, in their own territory between the second and third layers. Here they bide their time, waiting for the perfect chance to expose the gods for who they truly are. Azuras are not born, they are created. Every Asura traces themselves back to some mistake, some neglect, some malicious action of a god. However, there is ever only one or a small group for every single sin. There, of course, are some ways to enhance the population. First, they too can take the souls condemned to hell and grow it to be a nether one of their own, often by forcing them to experience the same cataclysm which formed the original they learned from. However, a majority of the souls are taken by devils, so Azuras just get scraps in that regard. Azuras can also form Triposaurs from the fabric of hell itself, but only a few of these form into stronger forms before hell reabsorbs them. Finally, strong enough Azuras can consume the flesh of their followers and shape their souls into new Azuras. Regardless how hard it is to create new Azuras, all Azuras hardly ever go away, as they have the ability to reincarnate, making them foes who will continuously come back. When an Azura's body is destroyed, they are returned to hell and into the grasp of stronger Azuras, the Azura Rani, and which are Azuras strong enough to make an Azura's body. In a slightly weaker form, of course. There is only so much one can work around the conservation of power. Of course, all Azuras might find this relationship too close to worship of a god, and therefore instead wait, taking longer to reincarnate and losing more of their accumulated power. But they can keep their dignity. Azuras are quieter than many of their companions. Many just spend their times meditating in the shadow domains of a temple. They can meditate on a single wicked thought as a mantra for centuries, and pass on tales and truths they know, both to one another and mortals. This makes it so other fiends will rarely compete with resources with an Azura, and makes them one of the fiends most likely to make allies with other fiends. One of the greatest creations of the Azura is the Shaded Library, a collection of claims about various deities they keep in circulation. It is unknown whether there are any truths to any of the secrets it passes along, or whether they are all dirty lies like Milani being an Azura. But there are various creatures who have learned of the library and embraced it, especially among immortals and extraplanar beings. For the most common Azuras, as mentioned earlier, Triposaurs are made as disciples to stronger Azuras in an attempt to make more Azuras, while with failures returning the essence to the boundaries of hell. Apasundra are divine negligence made manifest, and work to prepare their bodies for combat and destruction. The first Educate was made when two thieves had their bodies smashed together by God, causing widespread destruction and a devastating explosion. They look around places of natural disasters and always look for ways to betray their allies. Agasura were created first when a deity gave their serpent familiars sentience, but not morality. They have the ability to remain still for centuries while remaining aware, making them perfect as guardians and as people who love watching decay. Necromancer are born when the leaders of a church or cult are destroyed by their own deities. They work to pervert priests and dogmas of a faith. Hissandors are unholy abominations created and discarded by deities in order to do work they themselves do not want to sully their hands with. These creatures can level entire towns, but of course prefer holy sites. Japalisaurs were once demigods who were prophesied to kill the divine parents and were cast aside. Often with ocular powers themselves, they often team up with witches or cultists. And the strongest are Asura, Asuras who understand the universe to such an extent they can slip out of the gods' divine laws and break the laws of physics. Asura demigods are the Asura Rani. Many of them claim to be the first Asura born from the Big Mistake, but others have just become strong for various reincarnations. For those we know the origin of, Boga looted hundreds of abandoned monasteries and meditated on the treasure for thousands of years, eventually becoming a Rani known as the Treasurer. Iromavol suffered countless deaths from falling, rock slides, and premature burials, eventually reincarnating as a Rani with close connections to the earth. Chapravasati, the Lady of Poison, was born when a deity wiped out an entire planet with poison mist, and now has toxic fumes follow wherever she goes. Ona Mali was the handmaiden of a forgotten goddess of beauty, until the impossible standard she tried to imitate had her literally rip herself in two. Now known as the Trice Pure, the two halves spend their days working to outdo each other. Finally, Haidam was born from the hunger of an entire nation who was cursed by God with famine. And for the Rani we do not have a given origin for, Govardai, the numberless, has a smiling mouth constantly consuming the faces which form on his body, representing the faiths his false prophets bring ruin to. Andak the Dismembered had his limbs cut off and reattached at wrong angles, and he caused his faith to self-mutilate. Tarkson the Awakener of Wrath appears headless with 4 arms and is surrounded by the smoke-like face of his followers, those who anger but are unable to satisfy that anger. Wahoo is the severed head of a giant serpent, who is worshipped by his followers through executions. Meha, the father of false words, is a black snake with 13 faces who rules over several abandoned demiplanes. Chugara is a skinless butcher who takes portions of those he slays into his own body. Zorpadin, the beast who waits in smoke, loves fire which is misused, especially for purification, and leaps out of pyres to burn all he can. Finally, Raitar is a 4-headed, 12-eyed snake who can view and make real the greatest fears of others. And turn it off. The Asura Tiefling are known as false spawn, and they have an innate desire to strike at opponents which have a different religion than theirs. Though the strikes them to be slightly wider, their preferred method of attack is destruction of anything the opponent holds dear. False spawn tend to have a more androgynous appearance, but the most defining physical trait is that they have some sort of vestigial body part, whether it be an extra eye socket with no extra eye, or extra shoulder blades without matching arms. And that brings us to the end of today's video, and my 3-part Festival of Fiends. Short but fun. As for next week, we still have one more spine-tingling topic before we end this month off. See you then.